Well, hello there, Earthling, and welcome back to Podcastage. This is the Neumann TLM193. This microphone costs about $1,600, which is a lot of damage. Full disclosure, I'm annoying, and I bought this microphone with my own money, and I am never going to financially recover from this. If you do want to check it out, consider using one of my links in the description. Also, all of my recording settings will be listed in the doobly-doo as well as the description. And now let's talk about what comes in this wee little box. Oh my gosh, you get a wooden storage box. You'll of course get the microphone, a firm microphone clip, a 5/8 to 3/8 inch microphone stand adapter, and a bit of documentation. Then, as far as the build quality of this microphone, it feels fantastic, as it ought to, considering you are paying so much for it. It has an all-metal body, a metal mesh grille with a touch of give to it. As we move around the microphone, there is nothing on it, very bare bones. On the bottom, you have the XLR port, and whether you care or not, it is made in Germany. I'm not going to read the specs to you, but I will have them listed in the description, and I'll also have all of the graphs up on screen in case you want to pause and take a closer look at anything. Now I'm spinning around the 193 to 90 degrees to show you the off-axis rejection and coloration. Continuing around to 180 degrees, this is the rear of the mic. Continuing around to the second 90-degree angle, there we are, and then rotating and ending at the front of the microphone. I really don't want to do this because this microphone's really expensive, but let's see how this thing handles plosive rejection. Please provide pizza pronto. Please provide pizza pronto. Please provide pizza pronto. It's so painful. Now I am right on top of the 193 to exaggerate the proximity effect, and here is how it's sounding. Now about 6 inches off of the mic with it pointed at the corner of my mouth, and here's how it sounds. Now 1 foot away from the TLM193, about 2 feet away from the TLM193, and about 4 feet away from the Neumann TLM193. Now I'm typing on Gatoron blue switches to see how much of that the microphone can reject. And for the gamers, here are the sad W and spacebar keys. Now here's how the TLM193 sounds about 6 inches away from my mouth in a relatively well-treated room. And now here's how the 193 sounds about 6 inches away from my mouth in a completely untreated room. Now I want to hear how effective the microphone and mount are at rejecting shock, so I'll start by tapping on my desk to see how much of that it can reject. And then I'll tap on the boom arm. Forgive me for being annoying, but I want to be thorough and tap on the microphone to see if there are any kind of resonant frequencies. That, my friends, was not good enough. Now we need to hear how this mic sounds running through a couple of outboard preamps. So I'm running the 193 through a mic splitter. That is then running into the warm audio 73 EQ, gain at 35 decibels, output at 0, EQ is off, as well as the Universal Audio LA610 Mark II with the preamp set at +10, so all the tube coloration we could get, and the level at 1.5 with the EQ and the compression bypassed. Both of these are running into the Universal Audio X8, recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. And I think those are all the settings, so one more time, here is how the microphone sounds running through the warm audio 73 EQ, and here is a sample of how the 193 sounds running through the Universal Audio LA610 Mark II. What you're hearing right now is the 193 running directly into the Focusrite 18i 24th Gen. My gain is set at 30 decibels, recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. The reason this is a separate section in the video is I typically record the entire body of my reviews on this interface, but upon editing, I realized I used the Universal Audio. So I need to include this sample for that baseline, for that consistency, and for that point of comparison in case you want to hear how this mic sounds through the Focusrite compared to other videos I have done. But we also have the comparison section later, so let's move on. Okay, what do you say we do 18 microphone comparisons? I'll take that as a yes, and that means you have to watch the entire comparison section, so let's do it right now. Here is the TLM193, 6 inches off, gain set at 30 decibels. Let's hear the first comparison. First up, I'm on the Audio Technica AT2020, 6 inches off, gain still at 30 decibels. Check the lower third to see how much I boosted it. This microphone costs about $100. Let's move on. Back on the TLM193, this is a palette cleanser. That's enough. Let's move on. Now on the SE Electronics X1a, 6 inches off, no pad, no filters engaged. Gain on the Universal Audio X8 is still set at 30 decibels. That is enough. Let's do some more. Again, we are back on the TLM193, 6 inches off. Let's hear the next mic. Now I'm on the Rode NT1 5th Gen running over XLR into the UA-X8, 6 inches off, gain at 30 decibels. This microphone costs about $250, and that is the Rode compared to the Neumann. This is the TLM193 again, recording 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. Let's hear the next microphone. Next, I'm on the Shure KSM32, no pad and no filters engaged, about 6 inches off with the gain still set at 30 decibels. This microphone costs about $720-ish. There you go, KSM32 versus TLM193. Alright, here's another palette cleanser on the Neumann TLM193. Let's hear whatever the next one is. Now I am on the Neumann, hello Neumann, TLM102, about 6 inches off. This has no pads, no filters. Gain is still set at 30 decibels. This microphone costs about $750, so quite a bit less than the 193, but that is how it sounds in comparison to the 193. Okay, I am on the TLM193 again. That is enough yapping. Let's go to the next mic. Next, I am on the Telefunken TF11, about 6 inches off with the gain still set at 30 decibels. This microphone has no pads or filters on it, so it is just raw dog in the interface. This microphone costs about $900, and there you go, Telefunken against Neumann. Here we are on the TLM193 again. We're almost halfway done. Let's hear the next microphone. Now, I am on the Neumann, hello Neumann, TLM103. I am 6 inches off with my gain still set at about 30 decibels. This microphone has no pads or filters. It also costs about $1,200, so quite a bit less than the 193, but there you go, 103 versus 193. Okay, here is the TLM193 again to clear out your ear holes. That is enough talking. Let's do some more comparisons. Now I am on the AKG C414 XLS. I chose the XLS over the XL2 because this is a bit more natural. I'm 6 inches off, cardioid pattern, no pad, no filters engaged, 30 decibels of gain on the X8. This microphone costs about $1,200-ish. And there you go, AKG on cardioid against 193, which is only cardioid. Back again on the Neumann TLM193. I haven't said it yet, but hello Neumann. Let's go to the next mic. Now I am on the Austrian audio. Hello Austrian audio. OC818. 6 inches off, gain at 30 decibels, cardioid pattern, no pad, no filters engaged. This microphone costs about $1,250, so a bit less than the 193. A lot more polar patterns, a lot more filters. That's the AA. Let's do some more. Hey, it's a different day, but I have more microphones, so here's another palette cleanser on the TLM193. Next, I'm on the Lewitt PureTube, about 6 inches off with my gain still set at 30 decibels on the UA-X8. This mic only has a cardioid pattern. There are no pads and no filters available, so what you hear is what you get. This microphone costs between $1,200 and $1,500 depending on the kit. There you go. One of 2 tube mics in this comparison. Let's do some more. Past Bandrew. Okay, here is the TLM193 yet again, so you get a good feel for it and understand it before we jump to the next microphone. Okay, now I am on the Neumann, hello Neumann, TLM107, about 6 inches off, gain still at 30 decibels on the X8, cardioid pattern, no pad, no filters engaged. This microphone costs about $1,600. So not much less, but a little bit less than the 193. That's enough talking. Let's do some more. We have a handful more to go, so here is another palette cleanser on the TLM193. I'm not going to say more. Let's move on. Now I'm on the Soyuz or Soyuz Bomblet, about 6 inches off without the pad installed. My gain is still set at 30 decibels. This microphone costs about $1,600, so a little bit less than the 193. Similar feature set, cardioid pattern, and that's it. Let's do a handful more comparisons. Here I am again on the TLM193 to function as a palette cleanser. That is enough talking. Let's move on. Now I am on the Neumann, hello Neumann, TLM49, 6 inches off, gain still set at 30 decibels. This mic does not have multiple polar patterns, any pads or filters, just a very bare bones but great sounding mic. This mic costs about $1,700, so a little bit more than the 193. That is enough talking. Let's do some more. Okay, here is the TLM193 again. Here is how it sounds. That is enough of this. Let's do the next one. Now I am on the Lauten Audio Atlantis, also known as the FC387, also known by me as Big Chungus, gentle voicing, no pad, and on the cardioid pattern. This microphone, 6 inches off, gain at 30 decibels. This microphone costs about $1,758, and there you go. Lauten Audio against a Neumann. Which one do you like? Alright, here is the penultimate to the penultimate palette cleanser, or the super penultimate palette cleanser on the TLM193. Let's go to the next one. Now I am on the Gefell UMT70S, about 6 inches off, gain still set at 30 decibels on the cardioid pattern. This microphone costs about $1,765, so a bit more than the 193. That's how the Gefell sounds against the Neumann. That means this is your penultimate palette cleanser on the TLM193. That is enough talking. Let's go to that mic. Now it is reference time, or perhaps it is I have officially lost my mind time, because now I am on the Shure SM57, 6 inches off, gain at 51 decibels. This is a $100 instrument dynamic, but it is incredibly ubiquitous. Everybody has heard it. Hence the reference. Let's go to one more microphone. And here is your final palette cleanser on the TLM193. You know what the last mic's gonna be, so let's jump to it right now. I am on the Neumann, hello Neumann, U87 Ai, about 6 inches off, gain at 30 decibels, cardioid pattern, no pad, no filters engaged. This microphone costs about $3,700. But I think this is actually a fairly fair comparison and an interesting comparison. Let me know which one you prefer, U87 or TLM193. That is enough talking on my part. Let's move on. Oh my gosh, I am back on the 193 after the final microphone comparison, which means we have one more microphone to do, which we are going to jump to right now. I am on the Neumann, hello Neumann, U67 Reissue. That's right, we're back, baby. I'm about 6 inches off on the cardioid pattern, no pad, no filters engaged, gain set at 30 decibels. This microphone costs approximately $7,900. That's a lot of damage. So does this sound about $6,000 better than the TLM193 or not? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's move on. the face you wish you had. Swear on my life you don't look that bad, though you won't fool anyone with your mask. We'll still pretend because that's all you ask. Leatherface, don't worry, you're a great guy, and that's why we live in your life. I have nothing else to sing about, so it's a song about Leatherface, and he's not tricking anybody with that mask, man. It is so obvious. Neumann is out here making me question all of my life decisions, like buying a U67, because I'll never say that I like this more than the U67 because it costs $6,000 less. It's up there, though. It is way up there. This thing sounds so good. This is right up my alley. Let's talk about the pros. First up, the off-axis coloration on this thing is fantastic. It is very neutral and very inoffensive. Also, the mic has a decently low self-noise of 10 dBA. Nowadays, there are mics out there that have lower self-noises, but 10 dBA is not likely to ever be problematic. And then the biggest pro for me is how this microphone handles T's, K's, and S sounds. It just tames those so well and makes them very inoffensive, very unsharp, and very easy to listen to. But then as far as the cons, the first one is no big surprise. It does not do a very good job at plosive rejection. Those were pretty gnarly, so if you're using this for voice, either have really good mic technique or just use a pop filter. Also, it didn't do a great job at shock rejection, so either have a shock mount or be really good at not touching the microphone stand, or have some kind of mitigation method to isolate the microphone from those shocks. And lastly, this is more of an FYI, but just like a lot of Neumann microphones, the polar pattern on this is a bit unforgiving, so if you're in an untreated space or the room sounds bad, this microphone is going to pick that up and accentuate that. So be careful where you're using this, understand the placement, and play the polar pattern to your benefit if you have unwanted sounds around you. And now, what are my overall thoughts and opinions of the TLM193? As far as the overall sound, I would classify this as more of a neutral sounding microphone. The bass and low mids are balanced, but if you engage the proximity effect, it can still sound full-bodied. The mids are nice and neutral and open sounding, and then you have a tame treble and air frequency range on this mic, but it still has enough detail to sound lively and interesting. On the electric guitar, I really enjoyed how this thing sounded in the mids and then the treble and air frequencies, but with the mic close on the speaker, I thought the bass and low mids could use a touch of EQ to tame that a little bit. On the acoustic guitar, I thought it was fantastic. It was full-bodied, the mids were nice and clear, and then you had enough detail and articulation in the top end without it sounding artificial, without it sounding glassy, but still sounding very lively and exciting. Then for singing vocals, I absolutely loved it here. You're getting plenty of support in the low end without it sounding muddy or unclear or overbearing. The mids are unobtrusive and open sounding, and then you have this tamer upper frequency range, but it doesn't come across sounding dull or dead. It still has this really nice sheen to it. And lastly, for spoken word, that is another application. Why was I sitting like that? That is another application where I think this microphone really excels. If you are close miking, I think the bass and low mids could use a touch of EQ to clean them up. The mids are clear and open, and then you have this tamer treble and air region, which I find very appealing. And as I said, I love how this microphone handles the T's, the K's, and the S's, and the sibilants. It handles those harsher frequencies really well, which I find appealing and easy to listen to. And finally, would I recommend the Neumann? Hello, Neumann. TLM193. What a shocker based on everything I've said before. Yes, I would. This is now one of my favorite Neumann microphones that I have ever used because it offers that flatter, more neutral, more boring sound, which is right up my alley. That is the sound that I love out of my microphones. The more boring, the more easy to listen to they are, the more I am in love. And that's what this thing is offering. Now, with that praise out of the way, if you are looking for that Neumann sound, I would recommend looking elsewhere in their catalog, maybe the 103, definitely the U87, the TLM49. Those microphones all have a lot more character, a lot more flavor. Some of them have a bit more stank on them, while the 193 is giving you a much more neutral, much less flavored sound. It's kind of like getting a paintbrush with no paint on it, and you're getting to choose what color you want to use. The last thing I'll say about this, you don't need to spend $1,600 to get a great sounding microphone or a great sounding recording. You could get the SE Electronics X1a, the Rode NT1a, the Shure KSM32, the Austrian Audio OC818, the Lewitt PureTube. There are so many great sounding microphones, but what I hear out of this with my ears, with my sound sources, and my personal preference, this microphone just tames some harsher frequencies that I find annoying, a bit different than the other microphones I compared it against.